So in the last video, we saw how to implement the push and init operation for stacks. So let's just reorient ourselves into where we are right now. So we had these two push operations. The first push put 1 on top of the stack. The second push put 2 on top of the stack. And we've ended up with a structure that looks something like this, right? So our next goal is to be able to both see the value that's on top of the stack, this one here, as well as remove the value that's on top of the stack. To be able to view a value that's on top of the stack, we call that a peek operation. And to be able to remove the value on top of the stack, we call that a pop operation. So let's take a look how we can implement both of these in our C program. So first off, we need to add these into our header. Both of these functions return an int. So we have a peek, and then we're going to have our pop. So the main difference between peek and pop is that peek shows us the top value, whereas pop removes the top value. So let's take a look at how those differences really look. So when I come back over to here, what I have is I have those two functions. So I have int peek, which takes in a stack pointer, which we'll call s in this case. So what we need to do is we need to first determine, is there something actually on the stack for us to look at? And we could do that by taking a look at the size of the stack. So we take a look at the size to see if it's greater than 0. If it is, then we simply just return whatever is on top of the stack, just like that. If there isn't something on the stack, so the size isn't greater than 0, you can really do whatever you want. In my case, I'm just going to print out a message that says invalid peek operation. And I'm just going to return back like a value like -1. Just something simple like that. You probably want to throw an error if this happens. I'm just doing this for like simplicity's sake, right? So then the other thing that we want to do is be able to remove a value, which is called a pop. This follows some of the same principles. We do need to make sure that there actually is something to remove from the stack, so the size has to be greater than 0. To remove a value from the stack, we have a few main steps that we do. So let's take this example. First thing is we need to get the value that's on top of the stack because that is the value that we want to return back once we've removed it. We then want to move the top to be the next thing in the stack. So the top is going to move down here to the next thing in the stack. And then we are basically just removing what used to be on top. So that's basically the main idea of what we're doing with a pop. So the way that we do this is first we get the value from the top. So s top value. We then move the top to be equal to the next value in the stack. We then decrease the size. That's really what we've got going on here. And then we can return the value as a result. Now, if there isn't something to pop off the stack, once again, like before, we just say something like invalid pop operation, and then we return -1. And that's the way that our stack is generally going to look. So nice and simple, right? Let's give these operations a try. So rather than doing this sort of like convoluted idea here, what we could do instead is we could just say peek %s, right? That will show us the next value in the stack. Let's go ahead and compile this and run it. And as you can see, I get the result of 2, since that's the value currently on top of the stack. If I do a pop, I get the same sort of result. I'll get the value that's currently on top of the stack. The main difference being is what happens if we do this twice in a row, right? So say that I pop off of the stack and then I peek the stack. Let's see what happens. When I pop, the value 2 is returned. And remember, that value is removed from the stack. So we end up with a stack that looks like this diagram here. So that means the next time that we peek, we are actually going to get the next top value, which is 1 in this case. Do you see how that interaction works, right? The pop removes the value. The peek simply looks at the next value. So this is the way that you implement a pop and a peek. And that gives you the 3 main operations of a stack. And with this, a full implementation of a stack in C. Now, there are, of course, plenty of other methods and ideas that we can implement with the stack, but this gives you the base foundations of an actual stack data structure. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.